wounded. In an underpass at night, the light from the speeding traffic nearby flickers over a man standing in the shadows of the pedestrian walkway. His face slowly splits along an invisible wound, halving his head. One side begins to drop, his ear touching his shoulder. The man continues to stand. Meet the wounded. Taking the shape of an injured man, this is a creature of misfortune and accidents. Whenever the wounded is sighted, a horrific accident inevitably follows, usually involving the person who saw it. The effect multiplies with the number of people who see it. The more eyes glimpse the wounded, the worse the resulting accident. Its range appears to be worldwide, appearing all over the globe, and sometimes in multiple locations at the same time. Some people think that the creature causes the accidents, while others believe that the accidents summon the creature. It's very much a chicken and egg scenario. The only certainty is that if the wounded is present, an accident won't be far away. The wounded always appears as a copy of the person who sees it. Soon, in front of the witness's eyes, injuries appear quickly, as though in time lapse. Interviews with victims prior to death always mention the nature of the wounds. These injuries always vary from person to person and don't match the wounds that kill the victims themselves. This seemed to make no sense until a researcher examined all the recorded interviews to establish a timeline. They soon made the connection. When a person sees the wounded, the injuries they see are the wounds of the next person to witness the creature. This was confirmed when the researcher matched the interviews with the autopsy reports that followed. Delaying the wounded is possible. One victim discovered that making eye contact with the wounded will prevent the accident from occurring. As long as they kept the creature in view, even following it when it attempted to leave the scene, the accidents wouldn't occur. Of course, they couldn't keep this up forever, eventually falling asleep in an isolated area. They were subsequently killed by a sudden earthquake. The ground pretty much opened up and swallowed them whole. And, checking their injuries against the description from the previous victim, the wounded had appeared with injuries consistent with being crushed by rocks. It appears that, in addition to the number of people observing the wounded, the length of time it is observed also factors into the severity of the accident. The longer the viewing, the worse the accident. Usually, a brief glimpse is enough to cause a fatal car accident or construction mishap. Viewing longer than this amps the accident up in scale. This can result in earthquakes, mudslides, even buildings collapsing. The largest known viewing of a wounded resulted in the disappearance of a commercial airliner, presumed crashed. No trace of any of the passengers has ever been found. The only reason we know that this was a wounded incident was the social media posts of a passenger on the plane. They described seeing the creature appear in a seat that was previously unoccupied. If they'd left it at that, their death would probably have been the only one, probably caused by some sort of minor incident in the air. But they kept posting it to social media, including photographs and video, culminating in a live stream of the creature. The last thing the stream picked up was the pilot announcing over the intercom that there was turbulence and for everyone to buckle up. The stream disconnected amid screams, and that was the last that was heard from the victim. The flight went missing, along with every passenger aboard. It is assumed that everyone was killed. Attacking the wounded directly has proven ineffective. One victim attempted shooting the creature to get rid of it. They didn't know what it was, but saw that their pistol shots did appear to cause damage, driving it away. They were wrong. Rather than harming the creature, it causes the only known exception to the usual rule of only showing injuries from a future victim. After they had shot the wounded multiple times, they made a report to police by phone, saying that a twisted creature was approaching them. The police logged the report and dispatched officers to the area. But they found no trace of it, just bullet holes in the wall, presumably from the shooter. The cops concluded that the report was false and instead prepared to arrest the shooter for filing a false report. The shooter never made it to police custody. They visited a bank to cash a check and were caught up in an armed robbery. They were shot to death, but not by the robbers. The armed guards, laying down their guns at the orders of the bank robbers, accidentally discharged their firearms, causing the only death that occurred during the robbery. Recovering the report and following up at the location where the wounded was shot, the bullet holes matched perfectly with the placement of the shooter's own gunshot wounds.